In this tutorial, I'll show how to add Parti Volume into a scene, providing things like dust in the sunbeams you can see here in this composite. This is the final image. In this case, there's a beauty pass, an ambient occlusion pass, depth of field and color correction, and a Parti Volume pass, all put together to make the final rendered image. The beauty pass for this scene looks like this. I've got point lights inside all the light fixtures, and a directional light outside providing the shapes from the sun. I've used Mental Ray to render this, all Mental Ray MIA Material X passes materials, and Final Gather with a photographic exposure shader on the camera. In the scene, the first thing I'll do to set up the Parti Volume is get the shaders correctly done on the camera and the light. Then I'll look at how to tweak the overall look of the Parti Volume. To start, I'll begin with the directional light. I'll go into a perspective view and select my directional light. Right now, this has ray trace shadows and a light angle providing a spread in the sunbeams, and the overall intensity is controlled by intensity, color, and the standard directional light attributes. I have the intensity cranked pretty high to compensate for the photographic exposure on the camera. What I'll do to make this a volume light is scroll down into the custom shaders and suppress all the Maya shaders. This means all the Mental Ray properties take over, and anything we do to the light is governed by the Mental Ray section. I'll click on the shader node for Light Shader, and in the Create Render Node dialog under Mental Ray Lights, I'll add in a MIB Light Infinite. MIB Light Infinite is what you use in a directional light. For a spotlight, use a MIB Light Spot, and a point light, use a MIB Light Point. In this case, the MIB Light Infinite has really two attributes, color and factor, and is there shadow, yes or no? That's because it's a directional light. It's assumed to be as big as the scene, actually infinitely big. So really we have a choice over factor as a multiplier, the color of the light, and yes or no on the shadows. That's it. I'll reselect the light and select the MIB Light Infinite and copy and paste it. Control C and paste it, Control V, into the photon emitter. Once I enter that in, you can see down here in the help line, it connected the message from the MIB Light Infinite to the photon emitter. Very handy because we can copy and paste that to multiple lights if we had to, just like with the sky portals. Now I'll look at the camera. In my camera, if I look at the camera attributes, there's a lens shader, a photographic exposure. I want to break this connection so I get a true read on the light. That is, when I render it finally, I get black walls with an override material I'll use, and white Parti Volume, as opposed to artificially gray as governed by the photographic exposure. I'll right-click on the word Lens Shader and choose Break Connection. Now in the Volume shader, I'll add in a Parti Volume. In the Mental Ray section, under Volumetric Materials, I'll choose Parti Volume. In the Parti Volume, what we want to start out with is linking the light in. Right now the volume would be very good, very dark, and actually not do much, because no light here under the light linking is actually part of it. There are no lights participating in the media, the dust in the air. What I need to do is put in my sun shape in here. I've selected my sun shape. The big deal is you can actually type a name straight in by choosing the shape node name. Mine is called Sun Shape with a big S on shape. I'll take this name and copy it and paste it into that Parti Volume. Here in the camera attributes in the Parti Volume under lights, I can paste in that named node. Now it's connected. If you notice down here in the help line, it says message, basically saying, hey, you talk to him. Connect the light to the volume. A lot of the Mental Ray connections look like this. Make a connection saying message, yes, it is connected to something else. Now the Parti Volume sees that light. In Parti Volume, the things to worry about first for testing are the min and max step length. I'll bring this up. These are very, very small. I'll try 50 and 100. This is going to give me grainy, dotted looking light, but it's going to render fairly fast. I also want to worry about my scatter color. This is the color of the dust in the volume. Right now it's too dark, so I'm going to bring it off black, and I'll see what I get. I'll use IPR and render off a quick test. Now it's starting in, but I'm missing some things, right? I'm IPRing, but I'm already seeing color. Here's the other things we need for Parti Volume. Once we've got the nodes connected, the camera has the Parti Volume sees the light has the light shaders. We need to put a material on. Remember, we're going to composite this. This is going to lay over the beauty pass as an add or screen layer. So I'm going to go to my render layers and put an override on. In the render layers on the master layer, or on another layer, I'll right-click and choose Overrides, Create New Material Override, and I'll use an MIA Material X Passes. Everything turns gray. In the attributes for this MIA material, first I'll name it. I'll call mine PV Override. In the presets for this material, I'll make it a matte finish and black it out. I'll also take gloss down to 0 exactly. Now this material is a totally diffuse black. It has no shine, no reflectivity, no nothing. It renders black or black. In screening a layer or adding it in a compositing package like Fusion or After Effects, black is invisible. In the same way that in Multiply, white is invisible, it's the opposite. Black will disappear, leaving my sunbeams. Now I can test this. Before I test, one last thing. Parti Volume doesn't take Final Gather. Rather, it doesn't need it. So under Features, in the Render Settings, I'm going to turn off Final Gather. I'm going to turn off Global Illumination. I still need ray tracing. I still need shadows. I'm going to make sure my faces are on front, so I'm only rendering one side of each object. And I'm ready to go. Now I can test it. I'll use IPR and test a small section. It's looking pretty good so far. It's my IPR region finishes. I've got good strong sunbeams showing against geometry and coming into my space. The graininess is because of the min and max step length. For the final render, we'll reduce that down, getting a better render. What I want to look at now is the quality of the sunbeam. I'm going to reselect my camera and look at the Parti Volume. The things we want to adjust here. First, extinction. How long does the light last before it scatters off dust in the sunbeams and disappears? A higher extinction means that light goes away faster, but you can raise your scatter color. Here's an extinction of 0.005 and a scatter color of a medium gray. In another IPR, I start to see the gray in my sunbeams. If I take this scatter color into a color, such as red or yellow, I'm really going to see that showing up in the beams, but not in the lighting from that light. That's important if there's a color in the mist or you want a warmth in the sunbeams. I've left mine gray, but I've made it brighter. Now I want to look at where is the Parti Volume happening. Right now it's constant. Comes in through the windows, goes all the way down to the floor. Great. What I want to do is look at R, G1, and G2. Basically, this controls lobing, phasing, and anisotropy and backscatter in that volume. The way you can think of it is that sometimes the light is at the head. It's up by the window. And sometimes the light is at the foot, where the light beam hits the floor. If R, G1, and G2 go positive, the light sits up here. The backscatter's higher. If they go negative, it's down at the floor. I'm going to put my R up at 0.8 and raise my G1 and G2 as well. If these are unequal, you get asymmetric light. What we can see here in the IPR is that by raising R, G1, and G2, the light is clustering much more around the head of the light beam and fading out over distance to the floor. Taking these negative produces a greater bloom down here. You can play with it as you need. The other things to play with in here to vary the look are height and non-uniform. If mode is 1, and it's a Boolean switch, it's got 0 or 1, that's the choice. With mode at 1, a height above 0 puts the light up to a certain point, above which there is vacuum. I'll try an experiment. I'll put my height at 45 and run another render. In this example, the height of 45 above 0 in centimeters consistently makes the Parti volume appear to stop at a certain point. There is vacuum above, in case you ever need that floating ground mist with alien eggs in it. Non-uniform introduces a cloud-like behavior in the Parti volume. As that gets higher, you get towards Blinn clouds. Keeping a non-uniform at 0 gives you even uniform dust. That's really it for Parti volume. Now you're ready to render this out. When it's done, you should have a black render with sunbeams ready for a composite. When the Parti volume is rendered out with a higher quality and the RG1, G2 scatter and extinction adjusted, you get an image like this. In this case, what I've done is I've added in a little bit of shine and reflectivity into the matte black I used to override everything, so that the adjacent wall that's close to the camera right here gets a little bit of a glow or bloom from that Parti volume. I've also let my light beams be stronger down at the floor by taking RG1 and G2 negatively, so they're less dense up here at the window. Finally, I played with the scatter color, giving it a gray appearance that I can color tone in a compositing package. This is the final composite in Fusion. I've color corrected the sunbeams to add yellow. I've color corrected the overall scene, laid in an ambient occlusion pass giving me the darkness in the corners, and finally color correction and glow over the whole image to produce this rich, warm look. In my final Parti volume, I ended up with a gray scatter, lowering the extinction, and negative RG1 and G2. I also took the min and max step length down to get a better quality. In the lights, if you select the camera and then reselect the Parti volume, it'll give you a new light slot if you want to add more than one light into the Parti volume. Finally, as you can see, I've added on a layer called ambient occlusion. To run a custom occlusion on this we'll cover in a different tutorial. Now you can make your scenes with dust in the sunbeams, or cigarette smoke in the bar, or just a general haze. Anything better than, well, vacuum.